I've been here for 5 years and I've owned 5 businesses in 5 years. And I started giving back to the community. So I started asking myself, what should I do? I started browsing ideas. Then I'm like, podcast. I'll start a podcast. I won't be able to teach the audience because I'm not expert, not qualified to help anyone. But what I can do is ask bold questions to qualified people. And I'm going to ask, how did you make your first million? Because this is credibility. The purpose of this podcast was from the beginning is giving value and giving back. Because I felt like I owe this community.
All right.
Melissa.
JC?
Tell me your story in 1 minute.
Oh my goodness. What? No, that's not a good question.
That's a good question for me. You're on my podcast. You answer my questions.
Okay. I am a full-time entrepreneur, something I never thought I'd be, and pretty much had to kind of figure things out on my own. So here we are. I'm a mom. That's it. That's my story.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Now I have so many questions for you.
Okay, please do, because I was not prepared to answer that at all.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Now, first question, you're also not prepared to answer this question.
Okay.
When and how did you make your first million?
Investment in real estate, and I was about 35.
Wow. And were you a mother back then?
Yeah, my oldest is 18.
Wow. You had an early start.
Yeah.
So having kids and being a mother didn't stop you from making the $1 million?
No.
No. It helped you or it made it harder?
I wouldn't say that it made it harder, and I wouldn't say that it helped me, although there's definitely like points on both sides of that. I think that my kids are important to me and I want to provide to them financial security, of course, but it's not the only thing that drives me. So, I mean, my kids teach me as much as I learn.
What drives you?
I like personal accomplishment and being able to take care of my community. So whatever facilitates that.
How did you decide to do what you're doing right now? Full-time entrepreneur, investor?
I thought it would be fun. It's as simple as that. I thought it would be fun. Yeah. So I had a previous career in banking. I worked in corporate, and I started real estate investing as something I just thought would be fun to do. Didn't really know what I was doing. Built on it from there. And then I ultimately opened a property management company, and then I just quit my job. I'm like, I'm just going to go do this.
Do you remember the day, the evening when you made the decision?
Yes.
Give me more details to this story.
So in terms of leaving my corporate job, I had a great job. I was earning a great income. I had good benefits, lots of flexibility, all that great stuff. I was loosely thinking about leaving my job. I started the property management company. I was kind of doing it on my own. But what ultimately happened that pushed me on that is that on top of my kids needing me, my older son, he needed me to be more present than I was. I needed more flexibility with him. And my mother, so I take care of my parents as well too. And they were living across the street from me at the time, and my mom fell and broke her shoulder. So I took a 6-week leave of absence from work, and I decided during that time, I'm like, I'm just not going to go back. I'm going to make a go of this, put all my energy into this instead of part-time doing it, and really never look back. I just quit my job.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Were you scared in the beginning, like in the first 6 months and the first year?
No, I was ready.
You have a strong personality. You make decisions, you go for it. You have great drive.
Well, I was kind of looking, I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? And the worst that can happen is that I would just regret not doing it. And I said, if it didn't go as planned, I could easily course correct and step back into what I was doing. So,
did you hire coaches, mentors to help you with your investment journey from day one?
Not from day one, no. Actually, not until really just a few months prior when I had quit my job. I did hire a coach, Elizabeth Kelly. She's, I think, decently known. She's absolutely wonderful. And she guided me through a lot of things at the pace that I needed to, and gave me a lot of reassurance and was a great sounding board for stuff when I was really unsure. And as someone who'd been there and done that, that was really valuable to me. So, because I didn't really have anyone else to lean on, and I was okay to pay for a professional for their time because their time is valuable too. So she's been absolutely wonderful, and I would call her a friend now as well. So,
Do you still have coaches?
Currently, no.
Are you looking for one, or you think you know everything?
I did hire, I'll never know everything. I did hire a business coach, if you will, to really just help me through some of the transition and things that I wanted to put in place for the business that I was struggling to do as an entrepreneur, because I'm one person. So that was wonderful. That's just coming to a conclusion now. And I'm not really sure what the next coaching or consultation is going to look like. I'm just trying to figure out what it is that I need personally and professionally, and then I'll go from there.
Nice. Yeah. What was the biggest struggle throughout this journey investing in real estate? Was it scaling? Was it hiring employees? Was it finding properties, selling the properties? What was it?
I mean, there's lots of things that are hard. There are things that are easy. I think for me, it really became learning the value of other people's time and what that was going to cost and how that factored into how I was running it as a business. And we actually run into that a lot with our clients as well, too. And they wonder, like, why does it cost X amount to do something? It's the value of other people's time to get this particular item or job or maintenance thing done, right? So for me as a business owner, that was probably one of the hardest things to learn and how to manage through that, because I'm mean, my time is valuable, but I'm not up at 4 o'clock in the morning, out the gate doing stuff, working. I'll put in a 12, 15-hour day without thinking about it. And I can't expect that of other people. So I have to place a dollar amount on that. And for me, I think of infinite return because I know there's an outcome at the end of it. But for other people, I have to pay them, right, for their an hourly wage or whatever it's going to be. So that was a little bit difficult for me to get my head around. And I think I've made a lot of progress. So,
what was the biggest tip that you got that helped you overcome this problem or this challenge?
I think having the right people, quite frankly, and compensating them appropriately is good. And the best advice is really just to not try to hold on to the wrong people. Hire fast, fire faster. Yeah. Which is not easy to do.
No, it's not, especially in these days here. Everyone says hire fast, fire faster. I think it should be explained way more because literally there's some audience out there. If they hear you or hear anyone saying hire fast, fire faster, they'll go fire half of their employees.
Well, it's not quite that simple. That's in very
exactly. So like Victor said, one of my friends said yesterday, Starbucks hires characters. They don't hire skills. So don't look for perfect people, and if they're not perfect, fire them. But there's some things you can actually teach, some things you cannot teach. Yeah, I agree with you. I struggled with this for years.
The right attitude, I think, the right mindset, and people who are culturally a fit and want to be there and want to do the job that they're there to do and take pride in that, I think is really important. There are lots of things you can teach a person, but they have to have some, like the soft skills. Again, something that can be developed, but if they don't have it to begin with, you can't all of a sudden make sure that they have it, right? So, but learning and figuring out who you can and should develop and who's maybe just not in the right job or not a good fit culturally, it's not always easy to understand that, especially when you want to believe in people and help them realize their fullest potential, right?
How do you set your expectations when it comes to your team? So by example, you give them the plan of the week. Do you expect them to get it all done perfectly by the end of the week? Or you always say, I'm happy if they do 8 out of 10?
I really favor giving people as much autonomy as they need in their job to get the job done, and with the expectation that they're people and I will treat them like people with respect. They have families, they have lives, and I also expect them to come to me. If there's a specific way of doing things, some things are non-negotiable, but most of it is up to interpretation. As long as it gets done and follows a certain process, some of the how can be flexible depending on who's doing it. So if the job's not getting done, of course, that's a problem. And not that I want to really advocate for the good enough mentality, but good enough is good enough, right? There's not going to be perfection, and everyone's not going to do things the way that I would necessarily do them. So I really just expect my staff to come to me and say, I need help prioritize. I can't get all this done. Or can you step in and do this? I mean, I will go and do showings at a rental property if that means my staff can get a day off when they need it, right? I'm not above doing that, but I also want to make sure that they can perform their jobs within the timeframes that they have allotted to them. So I try to give them as much leeway as possible to get that done. And then I just kind of check and make sure that it is happening.
I like it. When I was trying to prepare for the podcast season 2, I was trying to script some questions. Then I decided, I'm like, who's the best to ask these questions? And I'm like, my audience. I'm doing this podcast for them. So I posted a video, what would you ask a millionaire? And we have a list of questions. So I'm going to ask my audience's questions to you.
Okay.
And I'll say their names because I named every question after them.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Great.
Yeah, let's go. They actually have some pretty good questions and pretty cheesy questions too, just to prep you. First question, what sacrifices you made to get where you are today? Any regrets or things you would do differently? That's from Andy.
It's been a lot of hard work, and the work-life balance, so really the time with my kids, it's not always an easy thing to navigate. And there's one thing that kind of sticks in mind with me with my kids, and then this is something that I give up at times, is that they came to me, I think I was working from home, I was working at the bank, and it was March break or something, so they were home, and they asked if they could have some money to go for breakfast, and I said, okay, sure, I can do that. And they say, oh, it's okay, Mama, we know you're busy, you don't have to come. And I thought, I'm not too busy for this, right? So I've sacrificed some time with my kids. But I think what we also do gain back is experiences. I mean, I took my one son on a trip to Belize and Mexico. We were gone for, I think, 2.5 weeks, right? So that's a life experience. Of course, I never had that as a child. And to be able to do that and spend that time with him is fantastic. So I have given up some things, and some of that is time with my kids, but I think they understand, especially as they're getting older, what that translates to at the end of the day, and something that I do talk to them about as well. So
that's good. You communicate it to them so they understand why you made the decisions that you made.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Any regrets or things you would do differently?
I think the way I've done things has really brought me to where I am now. And so that's not something that I would regret. I think if I had to pick one thing I would do differently would be to seek out peer support and other things like coaching much sooner than I did. And I simply didn't understand or realize what I was doing. And as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you really are on your own and you don't necessarily have a peer group to go to. And so you have to find the right venue to have that kind of support. And I think the sooner you do that, the more beneficial it is. So I would simply do that sooner.
Are you where you want to be in 2024?
Am I where I want to be?
So 10 years ago, in 10 years, so like in 2014, did you say 10 years from now, 5 years from now, I want to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
No, and I think that's a
person?
terrible question. It's like the interview, where do you want to be in 5 years? Did I think 5 years ago I would be here? No. Do I have any idea where I'm going to be 5 years from now? Right? I think that overall, my goal is that I live a life that I'm happy with and I get to spend time with people I care about and I get to do really great things. And part of that happens to be building a business, which I absolutely love. And that makes me happy. So long as I'm happy, like that's the goal.
So you don't have specific goals in business, this much properties, this much money, this much locations if you own different kind of business?
It's not that I've never had. There's certain milestones or benchmarks like, hey, if I can hit this by this age, that would be fantastic. But I'm not so fixed on that I'm inflexible, right? And the goal is really much broader. It's just simply to be happy with what I'm doing and how I'm spending my days, whatever that looks like.
Okay, and this is your style or this is an advice for everyone?
That's my style, but I think it should be advice for everyone because...
Don't have a goal, don't have a plan, just wake up and go with the flow?
Not to not have a goal, not have a plan, but to be ultimately happy with what those goals are and to have them serve you and what's important to you versus what's important to other people.
Do you put dates on the goals? Like, I need this goal done by the date of...
Sometimes I do. Yeah,
Okay.
it could depend on what the goal is, right? So, yeah, I think it can just depend on what the goal is. If I need to be specific, I can and I will. I just don't always need to be so specific. It's not... If I don't own a certain amount of properties, that doesn't mean I haven't done a good job, not happy, haven't achieved my goals, right? It's sometimes greater than that. So that's really what I mean.
Cool. Next question. Easiest way to make money? Anthony.
Easiest way to make money? Show up, man. Just show up and work. Show up and work because that will get you farther, not only for yourself, but in the eyes of other people than a lot of things you can do, right?
What was the hardest thing about making your first million? King T.
The hardest thing was probably, I think, just acknowledging that, not that it was possible, but that it was done, right? I don't come from money. It's a very surreal thing to say, hey, like, that's accomplished. Like, it's significant, but it's not significant at the same time because it doesn't really, money can accomplish a lot of things, but it doesn't necessarily change your life, right? So I think it was just really recognizing that it happened and like, what does that mean? What does that translate to? Yeah.
Cool. What is a daily habit that was easy to change that helped you be more successful? That's from Ember.
I think investing in myself. And by that, I mean like peace of mind and how I spend my days, just recognizing that it's not all about work and finding other things to fill my days that are not necessarily work related.
What do you do if you're not working?
I read a lot. I like to travel. Thankfully, my work can easily be incorporated into that, so that's wonderful. I mean, I like spending time with my kids, with my friends, that kind of thing. So I've really learned that because I am my own boss, I hold myself to the highest standard to do that, but I also have control of what my days look like at the end of the day. So I need to take the time and go do something or rearrange my day and say, okay, I'm going to take my son to an appointment. I can do that. I don't have to ask anyone, and I can just kind of rearrange things. So to me, that was an easier thing to do when I recognized that I had that control over my time.
Nice. What's your next travel destination?
I would love to go to Europe, but it's probably going to be Mexico.
That was a cool answer. I'd love to go to Europe, but I know I'm going to Mexico.
I go to Mexico a lot, so it's probably on.
What about Mexico? Like, why do you like to go there? Do you have any investments there?
Yeah, I love Mexico. It's a beautiful country. The food's great. I have some friends now there that I've made. I own a house there, so that's where I stay when I go. I found it actually relatively easy to navigate as a country, and there's lots to see. I haven't explored even a fraction of it. So I like it ever since I went the first time many years ago. I've loved it, and I said that I was going to own a house there one day.
Nice.
And it took me several years, but I eventually own a house.
You got it done.
Yeah, so I didn't put the date on that, but it happened, right?
I like that. It's close by too. So
Yeah,
it's not a long trip.
flight.
It's
Easy.
not Japan. My back still hurts from the plane. Next question. How do you manage your work-life balance? Do you doubt yourself? And how do you deal with it when you doubt yourself? That's from Armanda.
I can't say that I always manage it well in terms of a work-life balance, but I have really tried to put more balance in there, if you will. So, for example, I'm up very early in the day. I start my day early. Why? So that as much as possible, I can be home by dinner time. The work needs to get done, the hours need to be put in, and I'm happy to do that. I enjoy it. But if I'm going to have that kind of balance or have that time with my kids or show up at my son's football games or do those things, then I have to arrange my days to accommodate that, right? So
How early do you wake up? What time?
4:15.
Wow. What time do you sleep?
Usually between 8 and 9, I'm often.
Good. So
Yeah.
you get your healthy amount of sleep.
I get a few hours, 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night. As what it usually works out to. Yeah.
5 to 6 hours a night.
Yeah, of actual
And
sleep.
you feel that's good enough for you?
Good for me. Yeah.
Oh, not for me. I want my 7 hours. Okay, so there was a second part of the question, I guess. Do you doubt yourself? And how do you deal with it if you ever doubt yourself?
All the time. All the time. So it's okay to doubt yourself. It's just a matter of, I just kind of go back and say, like, what is it that needs to happen today? And then I do that and I deal with everything else kind of after. Right? So, of course, I doubt myself, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I just have to reset what are my priorities and make sure that I'm following that. And if I'm strayed from what my priorities are, then I simply need to correct it. So it's really more an opportunity to do so.
Nice. Next question. What is the best training trick to maintain a motivated and effective team to help you get your first million? That's from Mo. So a little bit background story about Mo. He's from Ottawa, and I think he has a sales team. They do door knocking. He's a student, very young guy, and he leads a team of students as well. So I think he's trying to keep them motivated to keep on doing the door knocking and the hard sales.
So that's an interesting question. I didn't really like a team, like a staff that kind of got to that. I kind of just did it on my own with my own thing. And
What do you do to keep yourself motivated? Nothing. You're just motivated. You were born like this?
I'm a generally motivated individual, and I kind of enjoy what I do, and I'm fortunate that it happens to make money and build assets.
Nice.
Right? It's in terms of keeping people motivated and feeling appreciated. I do like to check in with my staff because especially with the property management piece of it, it can be very stressful and there are a lot of demands and things that come up. And so I do check in with them regularly, like, everything good? Do you need my support? I flew 2 of my team members into Mexico for a week earlier in the year and just said, like, you guys worked really hard the past year. I was away a fair bit in Mexico because I purchased the property in Cancun and I need to get that up and running. It took way longer than I thought, and there was a lot of back and forth, and I'm like, but it was possible because they were holding the fort back home and handling things. So I needed to recognize that and show appreciation, and it was absolutely wonderful. It was a great trip. We had a really good time. So I think we're going to do it again next year.
You all went together?
Yeah.
You spend the time together, all of it?
Yeah, so I flew down to Belize first, and then I made my way up to Cancun and flew them in afterwards. So I met them there, and we spent the week together and then flew home the same day.
Nice. Did you think this trip affected on the relationship that you have with them, like as, their boss? Because, like when you become friends, there's no way back. There's no coming back from that.
Yeah, and that's definitely a thought. I think that, our team, we do feel very much like a family, but at the same time, you do also have that, boss-employee dynamic, and what does that look like? So both of them, we have really good communication on stuff, and I don't think that that's really been crossed in terms of becoming an issue. We all respect each other very much. We work to help each other as a team, and I think it's actually made our relationship better. They're both great at their jobs. They work really hard and care about it, so I don't really have performance issues or things that I need to worry about. And if there's something that I'm concerned about, I'm confident I can bring it up in a way that's not going to create an issue. So that works now with a very small team. As we get into a bigger team and different personalities and such, I might feel differently about that, but that's how I feel about it now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Next question. This cheesy question. How to deal with taxes from Chaka?
Well, if you're paying taxes, you're making money. So part of my background in corporate, I was accredited as a financial planner. I did investment retirement planning for some time and investment acquisitions. So I'm actually decently versed with taxes as a rule. A great accountant will help you to minimize the tax you have to pay at the end of the day. And there's definitely lots of things to do. But you should be paying taxes somewhere if you're making money, right? It's not a bad thing.
Of course. I like those next 3 questions. Of all of your wealth, what percentage is liquid?
About 30%.
30%. And is this a rule, a formula?
So I guess referring back to my background on things, at the end of the day, liquidity is important because when things don't go as planned and you might need access to something, you may save yourself by having access to certain things. So I've always been of the opinion that you should have some liquidity. And particularly as a real estate investor too, the banks want to see that. They want to know that in a rising interest rate environment, you can access cash to pay their mortgage, as an example, right? So I think that it is important to do that, and it really should be a non-negotiable. Do I have a set percentage? No. I think it can depend. What kind of business are you in? What are you running? What do your family needs look like? That kind of thing. It's more of a risk management piece, right?
Safety net.
Yeah, and it can be different for everyone.
You are a millionaire. You can do anything. What's on your bucket list? That's from the Nuja.
I want to do some more traveling to places I haven't been. I want to broaden my horizons a little bit. And I think that, like, when you call someone a millionaire like that, it can depend on whether it's asset-based or cash flow-based. There are different connotations to it, right? So I still need to act responsibly. It's not that there's unlimited money to do whatever I want. $1 million doesn't really go that far these days at the end of the day. I just want the freedom to be able to make the choices I want day to day.
Nice. Next question. Why isn't enough? So why are you still working? That's from
That's
Alec.
interesting. So my husband asked me, I remember I was down in Mexico working on the Cancun house. And I said, oh yeah, I'm looking at another property here. And he actually asked me, when is it going to be enough? And I said, never. It'll never be enough. Because I just think there's just so much I can do, be, and grow. And that, again, facilitates a lot of security and options for people that I care about. And I can never have enough of that, really.
I like it. What is an advice you would give the audience to have a successful future?
To have a successful future, I think sometimes there are going to be hard choices that you need to make in order to realize your goals. And you simply need to make them and do them instead of making excuses, right? So you can be a victor or you can be a victim. And that's really something that I've really held close, right? There are a lot of things that happen in my life that I could have just lied down and said, this is the life I'm destined to live. It's over. I'm just going to accept this. And I was never willing to accept it. And, another way, like I never met a no that I liked, right? It's just, I'm determined to find a way to get to where I want to be. And if you're determined to find a way and actually willing to put the work behind your words, then I think ultimately you will get there, right? So
that's a good advice. What's next for Melissa? What are you working on?
I am working on growing the property management business. And from a real estate investment standpoint, I'm restructuring a little bit just to reposition with the market conditions that we've had, and really looking to do bigger and better things on that end, and to make sure that I'm keeping the involvement in my kids' lives that I need to along the way. That's really where I'm at.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, thanks.
You don't need luck. I know that. You've done your homework already.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, that was a great podcast. Do you have any question for us before we wrap?
No.
Yes! No. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.